I was hoping it might be a little bit darker to demonstrate a point I wanted to make, and that is for about 2 billion people in the world, almost a third of humanity, every day when the sun goes down, they retreat into homes that are lit dimly, if at all, by candles or a kerosene lantern. This is typical of what you will find in a rural household in a developing country. And it might sound romantic, but I can assure you it's not. These flames are carcinogenic. People are able to hardly do anything. The children cannot read and study at night. It is said that people who live with kerosene smoke the equivalent of approximately 2 packs of cigarettes every day of their lives. Yet this is what they are left with when they're beyond the reach of the electric grid. And people are sometimes astonished when I tell them that as many as 2 billion people have never experienced electricity, something that was invented more than 100 years ago. But that is the stark reality. Can we start the PowerPoint?
Without electricity, the people of Sukiki are forced to use kerosene. And kerosene isn't always their friend.
The lantern was empty, and she was going to fill the empty lantern with the kerosene when the whole thing caught fire and exploded. So she got burns to quite a large percentage of her body.
This patient you have seen is typical for an exploding kerosene light. She's burned all over her front. Most patients, they stay in hospital an average of at least 20 days per patient. Because they have no alternative. There is no electricity in the village. It's just what is available. It's kerosene lamps, nothing else. If they would have any other kind of lighting, all these burns could be prevented.
This is the story of how the people of Sukiki learned to make their own electricity by capturing the light from the sun.
So that's a micro example of what you saw in the Solomon Islands. A woman got burned by a kerosene lamp that had exploded. I had the privilege, or perhaps misfortune, of having to meet her and experience directly what that was like for her. And it was a profoundly moving experience for me to see the kind of suffering that people have when they have to live with something like kerosene. Arthur C. Clarke once said, if for only that reason alone, it would be a good idea to bring solar power to all the rural villages in the world. This next slide kind of puts things in a more macro perspective. This is a satellite image of Earth at night, which I'm sure all of you have seen, and people use this image to make various points. But for me, the overwhelming kind of reality that comes out from this image is the fact that in Africa you have an entire continent that is literally in the dark, with the exception of a few pockets of light in South Africa. You see the gas flares off the coast of Nigeria, but essentially the entire continent is without power. And last year at Glen Eagles during the G8 summit, I wrote an op-ed to try to let people think about the whole question of energy. If there was a lot of attention going on at that time about Africa, and there still is, my point was simply thus: how can you seriously talk about developing a continent when something as fundamental as electricity is lacking? Next slide. The Solar Electric Light Fund, or SELF as it's commonly referred to, is a nonprofit organization founded in 1990 to address the issue of how these 2 billion people will emerge from centuries of darkness into a brighter future without doing additional damage to the planet to the burning of fossil fuels. Now, in the 90s, our work was concentrated mostly on bringing solar lighting into people's homes and using microcredit as a means of making the technology affordable to families that otherwise could not buy a solar home system, which can cost as much as $500. Not a lot to us, but for a rural family that is prohibitively expensive. So we would use microcredit and other forms of financing to allow these families to pay for these systems over time. And it really changed the equation because a lot of these families were already spending $5 or even $10 a month on kerosene and candles. So it just became a question of substituting this money for a higher quality of energy. And they were often able to make these payments over a period of 4 or 5 years. The systems are good for 20. The panels are warranted now for 25 years. The batteries need to be replaced every 5 to 8, 10 years. But it's very robust, it's very durable. And from day one, these families can start to enjoy the many benefits of modern energy. This is actually a Tibetan family in Western China. We work with nomads as well as farmers. You see the solar panel on their tent. What's so beautiful about this technology, photovoltaics, among many other advantages, is its modular and mobile nature. So these Tibetan nomads would simply pack up their panels when they moved and move on to another location. But wherever they went, they would have electric light and radio. So this technology is even conducive to a nomadic lifestyle and helps to preserve aspects of traditional culture which are precious to them, but allows them to enjoy a higher quality of life. Now, in the beginning in the year 2000 or so, the Solar Electric Light Fund started to think, what could we do beyond home lighting to bring benefits to communities? And so we started to explore other ways where solar electricity could be used to bring clean water and better health care and education, micro-enterprise and communication access to rural communities around the world. What's interesting to me is if you look at the Millennium Development Goals, which have now been out for the last few years, that look at eradicating poverty and improving maternal health care, eradicating disease, and improving safeguarding the environment, getting rid of addressing malaria and HIV/AIDS, etc. Even though energy or access to modern energy is absolutely essential to meeting each and every one of those Millennium Development Goals, it itself is not a Millennium Development Goal, which I found quite puzzling. And it's been a frustration for me in my career to talk to one development agency after another, other organizations that are doing great work when it comes to health or education or micro-enterprise. But when it comes to energy, there's often a blind spot, or maybe they'll address the problem by using a diesel generator, which is I don't think a solution at all. So we, as an organization, started to look for ways where we could use solar power to address some of these other aspects of development. So let me quickly go through some of these now. In the area of health, here's a very important one. Immunization is something that a lot of people try to promote, and there are a lot of money, a lot of effort being put into immunization campaigns. But in my experience, I have seen in many instances villages that are not able to maintain the cold chain, which is critical to storing vaccines because of the lack of electricity. Solar electricity is a perfect solution to providing storage for vaccines. And there are a number of WHO-approved solar power vaccine refrigerators on the market now. This is a project in Nigeria we did, in northern Nigeria, a Muslim part of the country, that, by the way, was extremely grateful to us when we went to Nigeria to work in these villages. They really appreciated the fact that we as Americans were bringing these solutions to their villages. It was not lost on them. Next slide. This is a picture from Bhutan. We did a project in a remote valley in Bhutan, a beautiful country that is known for its concept of gross national happiness and sustainable development. This was a health clinic we had just electrified, and one of the technicians that we had trained had kind of gashed his hand just in time to be stitched up under the bright lights of the solar system there. This is in Rwanda. We're now working with the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS Initiative, and another wonderful organization, Partners in Health, founded by Dr. Paul Farmer, to bring electricity to a number of rural health centers in Tanzania and Rwanda. And this is a woman in one of the labs that is being run by Partners in Health. And these are large systems. These are 4.5 kilowatt systems being used to power everything from X-ray machines, satellite dishes, autoclaves, centrifuges, the whole works. So there's no limit to what this technology can do. In Brazil, we did a project. We brought solar power and satellite-based internet access to a remote ecological reserve about 40 hours north of Manaus, deep in the Amazon rainforest. And here's a photograph of a nurse that is using this machine called the VitalLink, which is measuring this young man's blood pressure, blood pulse, blood oxygen level, and EKG, and transmitting all of this information to a hospital in Alabama for remote diagnosis. So we're excited about the potential of using solar energy and wireless communications to extend the reach of telemedicine in the developing world. Clean water. This is a topic that we could talk for a long time on. Basically, many people in developing communities spend hours and hours, especially women and young girls, collecting water every day. You don't get more basic than water in terms of health. We installed solar-powered water pumping systems in these villages in Nigeria, and now instead of walking for miles to fetch water, the villagers can turn on a faucet right there in their village and have access to clean water. Next slide. Another picture of a woman fetching water from the village. This is a picture of the solar array that's pumping the water up to the tank. One nice thing about water pumping, as opposed to many of the other applications with photovoltaics, is you don't need a battery. In this case, you simply pump water up to the tank, and the tank is the storage medium.
Holds true for mother of five, Hansatu Ali. She used to spend most of her days fetching water miles away before coming home to do her chores. But now the village well is just a few meters away, and fresh drinking water is pumped to the surface with power generated by these solar panels.
Education. Children in developing countries are severely deprived because they don't have access to modern energy. Bringing lights to schools allows adult literacy classes to take place. And beyond lights, you can also use the power for computers. This is a photograph from a project we did in KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa back in 2001. We electrified the school with solar energy and used it to run a computer lab and a satellite dish, which was bringing internet access to this school. It had a profound impact on the quality of teaching and education. The kids were excited to come to school and get on the internet and access information, and they ended up winning this international contest sponsored by the International Solar Energy Society to represent their school in Mexico. This is the school from the project in Brazil. These kids are also online thanks to the satellite dish that we've installed in the community, so they're able to access a world of information as well. Microenterprise. This is becoming increasingly important to us, finding ways of using solar power for productive end uses to help generate income at the village level. In Nigeria, we worked with the locals to build a microenterprise center. It's a building that houses 5 or 6 small businesses, all solar powered. This is a barber, a tailor that's now using an electric sewing machine, a radio repairman. This one was designed specifically for the women. We were aware that women were grinding peanuts by hand to produce the peanut oil for cooking, very time and labor intensive. This is a solar-powered oil expeller that they're now using, and they're turning this into a business. And we really appreciate and value the role that women play, and especially when it comes to energy. They bear the greatest burden when it comes to energy poverty, and they have the greatest potential to assume positions of leadership in some of these enterprises. This was a picture of the Microenterprise Center with the solar array on top. This is a portable irrigation system that we used in Nigeria. They're able to actually wheel this cart from field to field and take turns watering their fields from a nearby surface source of water. Now, in another project we're involved with, it's just getting off the ground in Benin in West Africa, which I'm very excited about. We're going to be combining solar water pumping with drip irrigation. For 6 months of the year in this part of Benin, during the dry season, there's no food production whatsoever. We're going to be addressing that by using the water pumping and the drip irrigation to help these farmers grow high-value fruits and vegetables during the dry season. So it's going to increase their food security, it's going to improve their nutrition, and it's going to provide a source of revenue. And we think we'll establish a business model that can be scaled up through the private sector because they're going to be able to double or triple their income from production of these food products.
172,000 hectares of protected forests. The Xixual-Xiparaná Reserve is precious. To some, this is a vision of Eden. To others, a land of opportunity where communities are blossoming like the forest itself. Managed and owned by the locals, the caboclos have preserved their traditions while keeping an eye on the future. And with the help of the Solar Electric Light Fund, a Washington-based nonprofit organization, the caboclos now have the first solar-powered village with wireless internet access in the forest, brought here to fill a huge void. To Chris and other members of the community, the new technology has not only helped them bridge the digital divide, it's quite literally changed the way they look at their world. For generations, the caboclo view their forest through predatory lenses. But here at the Amazonia Association School, children learn the importance of preserving the environment, whether in their classrooms or over the school's wireless solar-powered internet system. Here, the cost of school books is not an issue, and opportunities are endless. Older generations see the benefits. Some may even experience them firsthand, but the change is daunting.
A senhora vai usar a internet? Muito obrigada, Freling.
So why don't you give it a shot?
Agora eu não aprendo nada, papagaio velho não.
No way. I can't learn anything. You can't teach an old parrot how to talk.
Sim. Tudo, minha cabeça não dá.
Not me. I have lots of hopes to learn new things. I used to know nothing, and now I know so much.
Luis is the village's jack of all trades. He's a merchant marine, sometimes snake handler, and full-time football fanatic. But his greatest test has been his work as a registered nurse. With little help, in an area once afflicted by malaria and other tropical diseases, he's come close to performing medical miracles. But even Luis has seen some relief with the arrival of telemedicine, a technology that will enable him to seek medical advice overseas and perform tests such as cardiograms, live on the internet.
So now with telemedicine, this technology will enable me to tackle situations that are beyond my means. I will be able to contact the doctor's office, and he will be able to give me guidance to transmit to us an answer on what to do with a patient and give us a proper diagnosis.
But the Amazonia Association is struggling to be heard, especially by some members of the political elite who see environmentalists as a threat.
One of the other benefits of having brought internet here is that I think that we can finally give the people of the forest a voice now, because all decisions made concerning the Amazon tend to be made outside the Amazon, in distant cities like Brasilia or Sao Paulo or Rome or Washington, without consulting the local people.
Well, you've just seen a good graphic example of connectivity and how important it can be to developing these remote communities. I personally believe that the marriage of distributed power, solar energy, and wireless communications technology has a profound ability to make the world flat. You know, And now with this newest generation of Wi-Fi and WiMAX coming online, it's going to be easier to penetrate these remote areas with low power, low cost communication systems, which will allow them to remain rooted in their communities, in touch with each other, connected to nature, and at the same time interacting with this world, this larger world of which we're a part. Just more pictures from Brazil. Let's talk about climate change for just a minute. I know time is about up, but since this is a discussion about the big issue of climate change, I thought I would also add a couple of points. One of the nice things about the work that we do is that because we are displacing, in many cases, kerosene lanterns or diesel generators, both of which are carbon-based fuels, when we go into these rural communities and provide solar power, we're also generating carbon offsets. And this is an exciting and attractive combination of agendas, addressing climate change and poverty at the same time. And we've now been in the position of working with several organizations to help them become carbon neutral, and individuals. And you'll hear more about that later, but we're very excited to be here, and partnerships are really important to us. Nobody cares about energy for its own sake. It's the services that energy can provide: clean water, better healthcare, education, economic opportunity. So going forward, we're going to be looking increasingly for nonprofit organizations, for-profit companies, individuals, governments to work with to help make these changes in the developing world. This was from the recent project in Rwanda with Partners in Health and the Clinton Foundation. One last quick video, and I think we'll be done.
It's time to turn on the lights. For the first time, the church is bright with light. The celebrating began immediately.
Makes a big change in Isukiki.
New era.
Isukiki is one of the brightest places just because we have light and solar.
So thank you very much for your attention this afternoon. Thank you, Andrew. And we look forward to talking with all of you.